Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Buffet podcast, episode number 94. My name is Dean.
And this is Graham.
And Graham, happy Father's Day for everyone out there. We are recording this on Father's Day, although I don't think this will come out for a week afterwards. But yeah, hopefully you're going to have a good Father's Day. Enjoy it. Maybe I don't know if you'll get any games played with your family coming over. If it's just going to be a eating fest and that sort of thing.
Well, since my birthday was a couple months ago, I told Gareth and Lela the only thing I wanted for my birthday was that we all play a game together as a family. Now it's Father's Day, so I'm still waiting for that to be fulfilled for my birthday several months ago. So I'm hoping maybe Lela and I can play a game after everybody's gone, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and I'm back on the road, and I jokingly said before I got sent back out, I jokingly said maybe to you, and I said to Amy, I said, man, I bet you're hoping I get sent out before Father's Day. And she's like, why is that? I said, so you won't feel obligated to have to play a game with me, for Father's Day. I said, I'm pretty sure Reagan's probably, ready to take my bags out to the vehicle or whatever. And lo and behold, they got their wish. I was deployed before Father's Day, so I will not have to force them to play a game, and we'll kind of go from there. And so, yeah, it's
the game we should be playing is, where in the world is Mr. Liggett?
Right.
Judging by this, I mean, last week you were outside with your hair flapping in the breeze, and today you're in some nondescript hotel room. So you give us clues of where in the U.S. you currently are.
I'll just start holding the newspapers up like a kidnap victim to be able to show the date that I'm still alive. Well, that is the upside of being sent out. I don't have to worry about sitting on my driveway to do a recording because everyone else is occupying all the space in the house and that sort of thing. So other than that, that's maybe the only upside. Although I posted a picture on Twitter of this hotel room, and it is, I mean, I'm assuming it's a handicap room, but it is, yeah, it's got a separate bedroom and everything, and the living room area is freaking huge. I mean, it's a bunch of wide open space. I could get a couple gaming tables in here and get some good gaming in.
See, I was suggesting you should buy the game Catapult Feud.
I don't know that one.
No, where you actually build up walls and you have catapults and you're physically flinging things at other people's catapult. It's meant for kids.
Yeah.
But I figured with all that floor space, but then you and your creaky knees.
Yeah, that wouldn't work if I had to get down on my hands and knees to the cleaning department. The housekeepers would come in one day and just find me in a little puddle of my own urine and begging them to help me up off the floor.
I was just thinking, a turtle on its back, your arms and legs in the air going, just give me a shove.
Just reaching out to try to get the Pepsi bottle, but when I hit it, it rolls a little farther away, and I have to crawl across the floor. Yeah. As I tell Amy on a more morbid note, the odds are that she will have to collect my body one day out of a hotel room. Maybe that's what it'll look like. I don't know.
Well, honestly, I mean, you've been on the road in the last 2 or 3 years. Let's say in 2 years' time, out of 24 months, I swear you've been on the road for about 20 of those.
I don't know if it's been 20. I'd say in 24 months, it's been probably 18 at least.
Yeah.
So possible.
So it's highly probable that you will die in a hotel room by yourself.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I've been, so I've been doing this job for 15 years. It'll be 15 years next month. And, when you sit down, you calculate the number of days that you spend out on the road and everything else, it can be kind of depressing. It's even more depressing when I get my Marriott letter every year that says, hey, congratulations, your lifetime nights that you've stayed with us is this amount. It's like, wow, that's that's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Listen, it's, like I tell everybody, if it wasn't for the pay, no one would do their job. Right.
Yeah. It's a means to an end. One day you will be able to retire and be able to spend all the money you've accumulated on more expansions.
Yeah. I'm going to look forward to retire because Amy's like, we should maybe get an RV so we could travel. I'm thinking, what? Have you not participated in my life? I don't plan on going anywhere.
As soon as you retire, I'm not moving out of this chair for the next 5 years.
That's right. You can get me a lazy boy recliner with wheels on it, get it motorized. I can just wheel myself around the house. And this is where I play. Wheel up to the gaming table.
It's got the built-in fridge for your
Yeah.
Pepsis and everything else.
So the only place I plan on traveling to would be conventions or Canada, or I still want to take my bucket list trip to Normandy to see the Normandy beaches. But other than that, I don't plan on going anywhere.
Yeah, and I'm the exact opposite because I am at home all the time, well, most of the time. So as soon as I retire, I plan to be traveling all over the world.
Well, as long as you leave your door key under the mat, I guess, for when I go to Canada, I'll just go sit and stare at your shelves and staring at my own shelves and not play games.
Yeah, you'll be completely confused. It's like, where's all the plastic? There's no plastic on anything.
That's right. Everything's been punched.
See,
These games aren't worth anything.
What I should have done for your 50th birthday is got you a reshrinker machine. So you could just endless joys of unwrapping it and then rewrapping it, then unwrapping it and rewrapping it.
They do, yeah. That would be all right. That would be okay. So anyways, that's where I'm at. And it is Father's Day. So I promised Graham would keep this short and sweet because he's got family coming over. Somehow on Father's Day, he is doing all the cooking. I don't know how that works out for you, but I guess if you want to eat, that's how it works, right?
We're splitting it this year. So I'm doing half of it. Lella's doing half of it.
Oh,
so
yeah, she likes you then. She doesn't quite love you. She just likes you. So what? Oh yeah, sorry. She's doing the gluten-free stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You told me what you were having. It sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like cooking. So I'm breaking out my smoker. So I got some meats to smoke and baked beans to finish off in the smoker. So it should be all good.
I bought a watermelon yesterday. I might have some watermelon, and I made some chicken salad yesterday. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do something crazy and have a sandwich and some watermelon. Decide if I'm going to work today or if I'm gonna maybe sneak over to the casino and take thousands of dollars from them and then give it right back to them on the very next hand.
Yeah.
Well, anything else going on? Anything earth-shattering? I know we played Werewolf last night. So that is still going on. If people are interested and they want to join us, I know Father's Day weekend was hard. We had some people that couldn't make it. But we have had about 13, 15 people show interest in it. Yep. Or show up for it. So yeah, if you're interested and want to try it, maybe you've never played it. It's a pretty low key environment to dabble your toes into the werewolf game. And let us know. Just shoot us an email or something to boardgamebuffetpodcast@gmail.com, or put something on Facebook or Twitter and at Board Game Chats.
Yeah, and if you've never played before, I always start the thing 15 minutes early. So if there are any questions on how to play, we've had, I think, more than 50% of the people that we've had play have never played before.
Right.
So and we'll probably have one or two new people next time as well. And it's like Dean said, it's a very low key group. No one is hostile. We tend to play in about an hour. I do keep the days going, so you don't have half an hour to discuss. You've got 5-ish minutes. So sometimes in Werewolf the days can get very long. I try and keep the group moving to say, okay, sun's starting to set. You guys need to make a decision on what you want to do. So it's if you ever want to try Werewolf, this is a pretty welcoming group. And like I said, last night we played something a little different. I want to try something new, but usually it's just the standard roles, and I go through everything and explain how everything works. So it's fairly easy to jump into if you want to try Werewolf.
And I would also add in that I'd say 50% of our players are split male, female, pretty consistently. And of course, if you're playing in the game, you probably heard about it through the podcast, which means the demographics of it are are what they are, which if you've ever seen Werewolf played at a convention, generally it's a bunch of younger kids playing, or not younger kids, but teenagers, 20-year-olds, and so on and so forth. Um, if that is something that maybe you're afraid of, or you're afraid, well, I'm older than that. I don't want to, I don't want to be, stand out or whatever. Have no fear, because I would say our youngest player is maybe 40, and then it goes on up from there. I'm not sure exactly. I'd say Kyla is probably the youngest, and I don't know if she's 40 yet or not, but I've said 35 on up, I'd say, is our general age demographic. So don't think that you're gonna sit down and play with a bunch of 18-year-olds or whatever. It's a very nice, low key, calming environment. Like I said, pretty evenly split, male female. Way too many Canadians on there, so we do need to get some more Americans, or any other nationality would be great, because it's a way too nice group of werewolf players. Nobody wants to kill each other. They're all afraid of offending each other.
Yeah, whenever the group kills either werewolf or a villager, it's always sorry.
So, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to. But then we try to even that out with our New Jersey players who are like, yeah, screw you. So anyways, if you're interested, let us know. It's a we only do it once a month, and it's usually on a Saturday evening. But yeah, let us know. It's fun.
Yeah, the next one will be July 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you are interested,
I thought did we move it to 9?
Oh, sorry, yes, 9 o'clock. I forgot. So 9 p.m. Eastern time on July 17th.
Yes. So 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, which again tells you why we have the demographics that we have. Because, half the players are in their jammies. they're ready to shut it down for the night. But yeah, so it's fun.
Yep.
So we've had the werewolf. You've gotten some gaming and stuff in. I don't know if I told you when last time we were. So I did go and get some gaming in with Dan before I got deployed. And I will talk about the game that we played during the first bites. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you guys were talking last night on the werewolf, you were talking about how someone said, "Oh yeah, what's nice because you can go into the stores and buy stuff other than just groceries." And I thought, did they stop selling?
Yeah,
stuff? Really? I mean,
when we were in lockdown, you were only allowed to go out essentially for groceries, like medical appointments and groceries. So if you think like a Walmart, that has the grocery section and the clothing and all the other stuff, they had to physically block off those aisles. So if you went to a Walmart, the only thing you could buy was food.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we didn't do that. I mean, here, at least not to my knowledge, in any place I went to. I mean, as long as the capacity was met and you were wearing masks, I mean, maybe when it was just at the very beginning, when it was, for essentials. I mean, in Walmart, you could still go anywhere in the store. Maybe the hardware stores and places like that were shut down, but that's been a really long time since any of that's been here in the States. But yeah, when I forget, I think maybe it's Kyla who said it. I'm like, did I hear that correctly? That you're just now like able to go and like buy a t-shirt?
Yeah. Yeah. I need to buy new shoes. Because I have big holes on both of my shoes. So I haven't been able to go to a store to try shoes on. And I'm not going to buy them kind of sight unseen. I want to try them. So my shoes, the next step is going to be wrapping them with duct tape to make sure that they hold together.
That's because you're going out and walking every day.
Yeah, it pretty much. And that's what's worn them out. But I do need a new pair of shoes. But again, that is opening up when we're up at 15% of capacity for non-essential stores. So clothing stores, things like that, you can now go into. And we are leading the world for first doses of vaccination. So that's good news. So our government seems to be overly cautious. And I don't have a huge problem with that, but I am looking forward to the day when they say, okay, go about your business.
Yeah, it's been so long now. And I still carry a mask in my pocket, although most places have the sign saying that basically if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. I mean, that's a lot of self-policing that they're expecting people to do. I mean, certain places where I go, I'm going to assume everyone's not wearing a mask, but maybe only 50% of them are actually vaccinated.
Yeah.
If I would go to the casino, I don't know how the casinos are still doing it. I heard at one time they had like little plastic barriers up in between players at the tables. I might would wear a mask, even though I'm fully vaccinated. I don't know. I mean, I know you can still get it.
Yep. Yeah, you can still, even if you're fully vaccinated, you can still get it and you can still pass it on to non-vaccinated people. And it's, kind of as a side note to that, it feels like we've been locked down for a year and a half. Now we haven't. Last summer we had some of the restrictions eased. I'm not sure if, let's say they said, okay, you can go to the store tomorrow, no mask, no nothing, 100% capacity, whatever else. I'm not sure when it's going to feel normal again. Like even you said, you take a mask with you, but it's kind of always on your mind that I bet these people aren't vaccinated. Although you are fully vaccinated, I'm fully vaccinated now. It's one of those things when it's been drilled into us for like every day for the last year and a half, that will we ever get to the point in a year, 2 years time when you don't think about it anymore? It's going to go pre-pandemic, or whether we will always have this in the back of our mind of, should I be taking a mask? Do I want to get in large congregations? Is handshaking going to change? Going to cons, are you going to be all crammed in a room to hear someone talk or play, open board gaming? Are you consciously going to say, I'm going to move somewhere where there's less people, or whether you're just going to forget about it? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's all going to matter, or it's all going to depend on the person. I think it's all going to depend on the where you're at. I mean, if I was going to go to a casino, I was going to play a table game, and I'm going to sit shoulder to shoulder next to people, that may be a little different. I may feel like I need to wear a mask there. But at a con, if you're spread out far enough and you know who you're playing with at the table, I think here in the United States, we're never going to become like. So you see the pictures of people in China or certain Asian countries where they're wearing masks all the time. And I don't know if that's because of the flu, or maybe a swine flu or avian flu, whatever they had back a few years ago, or if it's just the pollution or whatever. I don't think you're ever going to see that happen in the United States. No matter how bad it was here, people, it was hard to get people to wear them while it was going on. You're not going to find people that are still, in masks, wearing masks 2 years from now, unless it ramps back up. So I think it should depend on what the variants do. But listen, we're not a science show. We're not sponsored by the CDC. So let's talk about some games. And I have 2 games in the First Bite segment. Do you let's see here. What do you have?
I also have 2 games.
Okay, I just want to make sure you weren't slacking.
Excuse me, I've been holding up this segment for like the last year.
Okay, just give me one segment. Give me one episode where I can outshine you. But so I said earlier that when I retire, I don't plan on going anywhere. I would like to go to Normandy for my bucket list, but there's another place I wouldn't mind going to, and that I don't know if it ties into the game I'm going to talk about, but it's in the title of it. So my first game is Vienna Connection. I would like to visit Vienna, Austria someday. I hear Austria is beautiful. But this game is about Cold War Vienna. Well, I don't know if it's Cold War, it might be modern day Vienna. It could have been Cold War. So if you played the game Detective, this is a re-implementation of Detective. It's the same style thing. It's still solving puzzles and making, deductions and things like that, but it's set in a spy theme. I hadn't played the original Detective. I do own it. I haven't played it. I got it because I thought Amy'd want to play it. Then you said, well, unless you play it all at one time, it kind of makes it harder to play. Unless you take really good notes. So we never did play it. So I don't know. You'll have to tell me how well it compares to the original. So in Vienna Connection, there's 4 missions that are in the base game. And you are, of course, just like Detective, you have to download their little programmer on the internet, their database. and you are working your way through these missions. You get a mission card that tells you basically how many turns you're going to get. And how they do it in this one, there's like 4 different sectors that you're going to possibly go to. And then depending on the mission, you could have 4 opportunities in the white sector and 3 opportunities in the red sector and 2 in the green, or whatever they are. And then you have these miscellaneous black cubes. Miscellaneous black cubes, you're going to have to, or not cubes, but boxes, you're going to have to tick off if you exceed your limits in the other areas. Or there are some clues you're going to go investigate that may tell you you have to tick off a black box. And so it's kind of managing that. And you can always kind of tell what you think the color box is going to be, because it'll kind of give you a little bit of a hint that, hey, this will probably be a white box or a red box. And you're going around, you're collecting these clues. Some of the clues have little puzzles within them that you have to decipher. They'll give you a decipher code. Some of the clues have little bits of information that you get on the database, and you kind of fill in the information with the symbol that it gives you, and then also a letter down at the bottom. And there might be 4 or 5 of these going on for each of the missions. Now, some of them I found were pretty simple. If you got through enough of the clues, you kind of figure out what the word was going to be and then just kind of fill it in. And you didn't necessarily need all the different symbols at the top. And then some of the symbol, or like one of the, during mission 2, it said, hey, warning, there are 2 puzzles that have the same exact amount of letter spaces. So, if you fill in the wrong one, and I did once, I filled it in on the wrong one. It said, oh, it's incorrect. You need to tick off a black box on your mission sheet. Again, it's a spy theme. You're working for, I don't know if you're working for the CIA, if you're working for another organization, but you're going to Vienna to initially figure out or kind of investigate a murder of one of your people. And then, of course, it has some divergent paths that you can go down. And you've got, the Russians, and you've got I think it was the Hungarians, and I think even the Austrians obviously were involved, and the Czechs and whatever. So you got all these different organizations. You got some sleeper cells. You got organized crime. You got all these different things that are possibly leading you to the correct answer, possibly taking you down rabbit holes that really don't have anything to do with what you're there for, but may lead you to something else. I played the first 2 missions. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was overly complicated by any means. The stories were okay. They didn't have me on the edge of the seat. They didn't necessarily do anything where I was like shocked, like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. They were pretty fairly standard tropes that you would see in spy movies, with, people that are either double agents or, maybe they were a sleeper agent, things like that. One of the things that this game does is it gives you, so for each mission, you open up the envelope, it gives you a couple of cards that you have. And these cards what do they call them? They're not objectives. They're kind of like little actions that you can take. They are like special operations. I think maybe they're operation cards. And there's like 3 of them in there, and it'll tell you, okay, for this one, you need to have 2 money assets, there's like these little wooden meeples. One is like a wine bottle. One is a star representing law enforcement. One is something else representing covert. And then there's money. So it tells you the different things that you need to have to be able to do this operation. And then it'll kind of give you an idea of what the operation is. And then you flip it over and it tells you what the results are. Some of them don't give you any real good results. Some of them may cause you to tick off more boxes. Some of them give you more information. Hey, take this clue, take this clue, take this clue, so on and so forth. Because you have these operation cards, and then you have when you get the mission, you have your base information card. And it gives you the story, and then it says, these are your 3 choices. You can go here, go here, go here. You choose which one you go to, and then it tells you, okay, take this clue. They give you this folder that's probably got 100, maybe more than 100 individual sheets of paper that, basically say clue 1 through whatever. It goes beyond 100. So maybe they're planning on adding more in later or whatever. And so you draw the ones out that you need, that the cards tell you, and then it gives you a little information. It could be a newspaper clipping, could be whatever. It could say, hey, you overhear this on the wiretap, get on the database and listen to this audio clip or whatever. It's cool how it does it, but man, let me tell you, those 100 sheets of loose paper are quite a pain in the butt. It would have been nice if they'd actually like maybe spiral bound them, or I don't know, something, but I've almost thought about 3-hole punching them and putting them in a binder, but then it just takes up more space. Like I said, it's a fun game. I didn't bring it with me on the road, just because I thought it was enjoyable, but the story hasn't really kept me like super engrossed. So maybe by the time I go back and play it, maybe I will have forgotten some stuff, but I did take notes.
So I haven't played Vienna Connection, but I did play the original Detective. So I have a couple questions on the new game.
Okay.
So in the original Detective, it was much more about piecing the logic together of what you were given to figure out what your next steps were. Because it's set in modern times. So it could be someone's been killed and you find their cell phone and you kind of go through their cell phone and you find like 5 numbers. So then you could maybe call those numbers and it would say, okay, you called so-and-so, pull out clue number 14. And then it could be that you hear half of a phone conversation or something like that. So then you're trying to work out what the other half of the conversation were saying. Or it could be that there's been a kidnapping on the street and they give you the city map and they give you, maybe webcams or something like that. So you can kind of see, well, we saw the person here at 9:00 and then we see him over here at 9:30. Well, how long would it take him to walk from here to here? And if he walked and we look at this camera, do we see him at 9:15 or whatever else? So you're trying to logically piece it together to figuring out where and what to go. And there's a lot more thinking about what you should do as opposed to actually doing what you're doing. So you basically have it's almost like, in that sense, it's like a consulting detective. When here's the story, what do you want to do? Well, if so-and-so said that they were wearing a red shirt, but someone else said that they're wearing a white shirt, obviously they must have changed shirts. So why were they changing shirts? Well, maybe they went, maybe they spilled something. So maybe they were out to dinner. Let's go look at restaurants, that type of thing. So you're trying to logically piece it together. There isn't so much of solve this clue. Like here's a crypto thing that's, cipher substitution. So figure it out. Or, it was more about gathering the clues and trying to figure out what those clues meant to figure out where you're going to go next. There is some time management because you are cops. So you work an 8-hour day. So you only have that much time. If you want to go interview someone, well, that takes 2 hours. So then you mark off 2 hours. And if you go over that, you go into overtime and it raises your stress level and you can only do so much of that before you do need to rest, stuff like that. So was the game you were playing more of a go here, solve this little kind of mini puzzle, and we'll give you this, half of the key, then you go somewhere else, solve this mini puzzle to give you the second half of the key, then you say, oh, okay, well, this key means this and whatever else? Or is it more of just, here's the story, just figure out what you need to do?
So it was more of the former than the latter, and the fact that I never. So when it tells you, you can go here, you can go here, you can go here. Sometimes it was just a shot in the dark. I mean, you kind of knew where the story was going. So sometimes you didn't necessarily have to go to that clue. You kind of knew how that was going to play out. What I found. I think what I found most of a letdown for this game was that the clues that you're doing on the internet, where you're filling in the letters, like once you got enough of the letters, like, okay, so that looks like it could be this. And so I would go back and I started looking at my kind of notes. Okay, oh yeah, we did talk about Odysseus. So then you fill in Odysseus and that kind of finishes out that clue. So I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to get everything for it. And maybe all the letters weren't even available through the clues that they were going to give you. Maybe they assumed that's how you're going to do it. But at the end of the mission, so when you run out of time, you have to get on the database, and it asks you some questions.
Yeah.
And so you fill in the answers. And then so you kind of solve that mission. It then gives you a follow-up of check, 2 or 3 boxes of basically parts of the storyline that you want to further explore, that you want to give recommendations for the CIA to follow up on. And so you check them, and it takes you to another page like, well, because you told them to look into this person, they were able to investigate, and they found out that they've been leaking information to whatever, and they arrested them or whatever. And I felt like there were parts of stories that I didn't really investigate at all, but because I clicked that box, it somehow solved that portion of the story for me. And maybe those clues aren't in the story or in the box anyways to be able to investigate further. But it felt like a little bit of a letdown. Like, okay, yeah, so I was able to do this, but I didn't really do anything to really solve it.
And I don't remember, because it's been a couple of years since I played detective. The one thing I don't remember. I remember answering the questions on the site, like, who was killed, why were they killed, the standard type of things that you do in a case. I don't remember whether there was a follow-up to say, what did you want to learn more about? Because the one thing I really liked about detective would be, for example, you're at a crime scene and your phone is ringing and you see someone outside the bushes. What do you do? Do you chase the person in the bushes, or do you answer the phone? Let's say you decide, I'm going to go chase the person in the bushes. Then it will tell you, basically, you've missed a phone call. So take card 13 out of this case and put it in case number 3. So you're like, okay, so what did I miss? What was that phone call I missed? So then when you go to case 3, you're hoping that you're going to find the stuff that links back, because there is a large case in detective and then kind of 4 smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
So you're as you're learning about the one case, like if you're at a murder scene, you're trying to figure out who's the murderer, why were they killed, whatever else. But there's a larger story going on that you're picking up bits and pieces from the different cases. And it's those type of clues, which I'm assuming are being moved from case to case to say, you missed a phone call. Maybe it was an informant that was trying to contact you and give you some information about the larger case, which I enjoyed, because at the end of it, you kind of realize that there is a larger story going on, as opposed to just the murder or whatever that current case, the murder, kidnapping, whatever else. Did you get that sense from the things you played, that there was a larger story, or is it more like, today you're going to figure out how to communicate with the Russians secretly, and then tomorrow you're going to be doing this?
Now, I definitely think there's a larger story. I mean, the 2 missions I've done, I don't know that they necessarily felt like they were tied together. I mean, there was a little bit of they give you a reason at the beginning of the second mission. Okay, well, this is why you're still here. You guys did such a great job doing this. They want you to investigate this or whatever. But I'm assuming no matter how you finish each of the missions, that's what they're gonna tell you. I'm assuming there's a larger story, but I don't necessarily know if there is. I don't know if there's enough sub stories or enough choices that it would warrant replayability. Like I want to get through all 4, and I wouldn't mind going back at least to the first one and just choosing totally different stuff, and then kind of see if I answer the questions differently, if I can remember how I answered them the first time, that it would do something different. I mean, there are limitations to to the design, and you can't just make it a total open-ended sandbox like a consulting detective. I mean, and I'm not sure which way I like better. I mean, I like the idea, like in Mythos Tales or Consulting Detective, where you pretty much just whatever, go where you want to go, do what you want to do. And at times you're like, well, it would have been nice to have maybe a little bit of them giving me a choice, or focusing me. But at the same time, you then run the risk of it being so derivative that this is, it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
You have a choice of A or B, and it's always going to give you C, no matter which one you do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I said, I've enjoyed it. I haven't played Detective. I will say that playing Vienna Connection, I do want to finish it, but it hasn't motivated me to want to play Detective anymore. I mean, I still want to play it, but it's not like I'm like, man, now I really want to get Detective to the table.
So I really enjoyed Detective more than the Chronicles of Crime.
Mm-hmm.
Because Chronicles of Crime to me was more of along the lines of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which I also enjoy. But I found Chronicles of Crime was, well, you have 5 people at the scene and 3 pieces of evidence. Okay, so person A, what do you know about evidence 1? Person A, what do you know about evidence 2? Person A, what do you know about evidence 3? Person B, what do you know about evidence? And it was just kind of this rote thing of waiting for the connections to appear. I found Detective more cerebral in that sense, which you had to logically think through, what do I need to do next? So you would find let's say a Kleenex, or you found lipstick or something like that. What do I need to do next? Well, okay, don't forget you have a forensics lab. Send it to the forensics, and they gather a piece of the DNA. And what do you do with the DNA? Well, you need to enter it on the online tool. And then you were trying to build up DNA profiles and stuff like that. But it wasn't, I found Chronicles of Crime, what you were saying is it kind of handed you on a platter. Here are your options. Just figure out which combination of options will get you the information you need. I found Detective more of, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my options are. And we had to logically think through it. And again, I haven't played Vienna Connection. I don't want to give too much away about Detective, but things change in Detective. So it's not a day 1, there's a murder. Then day 2, there's a murder. Day 3, there's a murder. Day 4, there's a murder. There's something happening different each day. And there's definitely a change of how you're going to be approaching the game on one of the days within Detective. So, and that kind of throws your whole, what you're expecting from the game, not completely different, but you're going, oh, this is new. I haven't seen this before in Detective. It's no longer just me as a cop coming in and getting, the boss handing me a piece of paper saying, go investigate this murder. Something has changed that I'm now having to think differently how I'm going to approach the case, which again, I enjoyed that.
Right. And again, I'm hoping that's what Vienna Connection does. Like I said, I enjoyed the first 2 missions. I played them back to back, and it was fun. I sat there and just kind of zoned out while I did it. I just the whole reason I got it was because I love the spy theme, the whole, whatever, CIA Cold War sort of thing. And I know that's a hard theme to pull off sometimes, because it is still just a game. But and I know you spoke highly of Detective, so I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. I'm going to finish it out for sure. I didn't bring it with me because I just didn't bring it with me. But I will say, after playing both the first 2 missions back to back, I was okay. I wanted to take a break. There's no way I wanted to plow through all 4 of them at one time. But anyways, that's Vienna Connection is put out by Portal Games, and it's got a pretty good price point. I think I paid less than $40 for it. I think I paid like $35 for it, maybe. So yeah, check it out if you enjoyed Detective and you like a spy theme. Yeah, give it a whirl.
Okay, so my first bite is a game that Dean and I actually played 6 months ago, maybe even longer than that. This is called Masters of the Night.
I thought this sounded familiar. Did you get a physical copy of it?
So I got a physical copy of it.
Okay.
So I played it on Tabletopia with Dean, and then Lella, myself, Megan, and B played it on Tabletopia because it was in Kickstarter when it was on Tabletopia. So it was pre-production, whatever else. We played it. It's a co-op game. I saw it pop up in my local store as it's now the physical one. So I decided, well, it's a co-op game. We have, Lella enjoys co-ops, Jack enjoys co-ops, so maybe I'll pick it up because I like the theme. So Masters of the Night, if you don't remember, which I'm sure you don't, because like I said, it's probably been a year since we talked about it, is you are a family of vampires who are just coming into a new town. You're kind of down on your luck. You're chased out of the last town. So this is your last chance to kind of get your family going again to become more powerful. It's a co-op game, which you're going to have 9 locations on your main board, and those are going to be randomized. Each location will either have a night action or a day action, or some of them have both. And the goal of the game is to, for each vampire that's in play, because this plays from 1 to 5 players, for each one that's in play, you need to clear out a section from all the bad people, or the agents who are hunting you down. You need to put your sigil down. So you have to perform a special rite to get this little plaque on the board that says this area is basically clean and it's like a vampire strong point. Once all vampires have their sigils out, then all the vampires need to come to one sigil and do the last ritual, which will basically take over the minds of everybody in the city and they become all powerful. Of course, there's the agents that are working against you, and they're kind of like the pandemic cubes. Every round, you're going to have more of these agents coming out. At the beginning of the round, you're going to be turning over a card. The card will tell you where the agents come out. And depending on what your strength is going to determine how many agents come out. So if you're really strong, less agents will come out. And that's where you start at the beginning of the game. It will say, for every blue X, put out 1 agent. For every red X, you put down 2 red agents or 2 agents. Look at the card. It will show you within the 9 squares, there's a blue X here, a blue X here, and a red X there. So you just put out the agents. Then you activate anything that has a day ability, and usually those are bad for the vampires. It will be things like, if there are more agents than minions or vampires, then you can't use any special abilities. Or if there's more minions, if there's more agents than vampires, then vampires can only move 1 space. Things like that. Then it becomes the night phase, and then the vampires get to move. You can do normal actions. You can move from 1 space to another space. You can drop what's called a minion, which are, the people that are going to help you to do stuff. You can fight against the agents, but the agents come on the board face down. They're hidden. So you can walk into an area and you can expose all the agents. And once they're exposed, you can then fight them. But that's 2 separate actions. Each vampire only has 2 actions on their turn. So you can move and expose, or if they're in the location you can expose and fight. This all sounds very familiar. If you've played any co-op games, this is the standard type of thing. At the beginning of the round, bad stuff happens, and then you do your actions to clean up. The one thing that kind of sets this game apart is the dice pool. So the dice pool is a common dice pool for all players. At the beginning of the game, you're going to roll 2 dice per player. So let's say there are 4 people playing. There's 4 vampires. You're going to roll 8 dice. When you have to use a die roll, which is going to be through combat, or some of the locations will say, if you use a 1 to 2, you get to do this. 3 or 4, you get to do that. You're going to take a die out of the die pool. You don't roll it. You see what your possible choices are, and you're just going to take one of them. Once all the die pool is empty, that's the only time you're going to re-roll the dice. So if you're going to go into combat during the day, which is going to be instigated by the agents, you always have to take the lowest dice available. If you decide to initiate combat at night, you get to take whatever dice you want. So there's not only management of the agents, but there's also management of your die pool. That's critical, because you don't want to be stuck with all low dice during the day phase, because if you're forced to take a 1 or a 2, you just get damaged and you don't get to kill off the agents, because of course you want to be killing off agents. So yeah, you can be great during the night and say, I'm going to use all the 6s. Yeah, but then you're left with all these really crappy dice that someone has to use before they get re-rolled. So I really enjoyed that kind of the manipulation of that die pool. I thought was by far the most interesting part of the game, because the rest of the game is pretty standard co-op stuff. But that dice pool really makes you think every single time. You're like, maybe we'll take a 6 and a 3, because the 3 at least kills someone, but I take damage. And the 6 will just kill a person without taking any damage. Are you guys okay with me leaving only 1s or 2s? Or does someone think they're really going to need a 6? Like if you're really damaged, if you're down to your last hit point, I probably don't want to leave you with the 1s and 2s, because then if you have to fight, you're going to die. I want to try and leave you with, dice that maybe you can use to heal yourself or something like that. So I like that there's that additional level of co-op in the game, as opposed to just saying, okay, I'm going to go here and do this, Dean, you go there and do that, you go there and do that. It's like, okay, that's fine, but then how are we going to manage the dice as well? Because that's critical. And I got a chance to play this with Lella. We both were playing 2 vampires. If during that first part of the game, an agent comes to a location where there's either a minion, so one of the people you dropped off, or a vampire itself, you lower what's called the veil. The veil never gets down to 0. Basically, you're exposed and you get killed or whatever else. So before that, it was Lola's turn to roll the dice. She used up the last die of the pool. She rolled it. It was all 1s and 2s. So even if we went into a fight, even at night, we're never going to be able to kill anybody with those 1s or 2s, because all the 1s and 2s does is just give us damage. So then it was a frantic thing during the night of trying to figure out how can we manipulate the dice, because some locations are, or some special abilities are, being able to add like 1 or 2 to a die. So we're trying to manipulate the dice so they become more useful. Some locations will use dice, like if you use a 1 or 2, raise the veil. Unfortunately, we got it down to a die pool of, I think, only 2 dice left. But then it was the agents, and the agents went to the 3 spots where we were and raised the veil 3 times, and we died that way. But it was enjoyable trying to manipulate that die pool, going, we don't want to fight with this die pool, so what else can we use these dice for? And make sure we're doing those things to make sure we can hopefully get a chance to re-roll, or at least manipulate them high enough that they become useful to us. So, like I said, it is a standard co-op game. If you like co-op games, this is one that I would say you're probably going to enjoy. But that dice mechanism is one I really enjoy. This is published by Ares Games. It's a well-produced game. And if the die thing doesn't sound interesting to you, I don't think there's really anything else in the game that's going to make it stand above any other co-op games. Like I said, it's a pretty standard co-op game. Bad stuff comes out, you have to deal with it. It's just the die manipulation, which I thought set this game a little aside. So that is Masters of the Night by Nikolai Asmolov, and put up by Ares Games.
Yeah, I just barely remember playing this game. As you were describing, like, oh yeah, I do remember the dice pool, and I will agree. I think the dice pool was the most interesting thing about the game. Thematically, I know there's an RPG, I think, that is Masters of the Night. I think it's an RPG system.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not big into vampires, but I thought that I read somewhere that it's kind of, I don't know if it's part of that IP or loosely based off the IP or whatever the case may be. But if you like vampires, maybe a great game to check out. I find it more interesting that, they say married couples turn into each other over time, that you have infected Lela's ability to roll dice, that she only rolls 1. If you two start wearing the same outfits, like you will see some of those couples, especially like on vacations, they're dressed the same. And I would say, it's not because they're taking a family picture day. It's just, that's just kind of how they roll. We're just not going to be able to hang out with each other anymore at that point in time. So, yeah, so the next game you're going to talk about when it comes back to you is another co-op game. And I don't know if it's because we've recently just played it, but thematically and mechanism wise, I enjoyed that one much more so than Masters of the Night.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but yes, I would agree with you that the one that you and I played recently, I enjoyed more Masters of the Night, because Masters of the Night feels like a very, very standard co-op game with this kind of unique dice mechanism. I enjoy the theme because it's kind of dark, horror type thing, which is kind of up my alley. But yeah, if it was just a standard dice rolling thing, I would say this one's forgettable, because there's nothing that feels interesting about this game. It's that dice mechanism. The location stuff is a bit interesting, but we'll talk about after you do your other game. What is it, Yahtzee or whatever that you got to play?
No, well, one of us has to be a real gamer on this podcast, and I guess this episode it's my turn. So the game I played it with Dan, came out in 2020. It's by GMT. and it is Imperial Struggle. So Imperial Struggle is, some people say, well, it's the spiritual successor to Twilight Struggle. Same designers, same idea, only this one is set in the late 17th into the 18th century in Europe. It is a struggle between Britain and France, who's going to dominate the world at that point in time. So if you look at the game board is divided into 4 spheres. You have North America, the Caribbean, India, and then Europe. And that's kind of where the territories are laid out. And then, of course, within those territories, you've got different locations, and some of the locations are just marketplaces. Some of the locations are more like forts or settlements, and they're all going to be. It's not that they're worth any more points; it just costs you more actions to what they call put a flag on them. Everything's about putting flags, out. It's like the old Eddie Izzard bit. I've planted my flag, so I claim this in the name of whoever. And that's what you're doing in this game. So you are. It's a card-driven game from the standpoint of you have an event deck, and you are going to draw, I want to say, 5 cards from the event deck at the beginning of the phase. Trying to think that the technical term they use there. And then you're going to play those event cards, from your hand for whatever you want to. The event cards are going to have, if you're France, it does this. If you're England, it does this. It's going to possibly have symbols at the top of the card that you're trying to link with some other things, which I'll talk about. And then it's going to have another, like a cross symbol that you're hoping to link with your other cards that are off to the side, which I'll explain as well. There are no real operation points that you're going to be playing in this game. You pretty much are going to do what you want based off of the activation tiles that you're going to draw. So that's kind of how the game is going to look, and that's maybe where the similarities sort of end to Twilight Struggle. So on your turn, so let's say you're starting at the beginning of the game. The game itself is divided into 3 kind of phases. You start with the War of Spanish Succession, and then you'll do that for 2 turns, and then you go to the War of Austrian Succession, which I think that is for 2 turns, and then it ends with the French and India, or the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War, whichever way you want to think about it, and that is 3 phases, maybe, or 3 turns, I think. So starting at the beginning, when we're in the the War of Spanish Succession, the reason it delineates between those, because you have this, what they call like a battle board off to the side. And that battle board is going to begin divided into those 4 territories that I talked about on the map: Europe, the Caribbean, North America, and India. And really all you're doing out on that board, you're not putting troops per se. You're not really doing a whole lot. Everyone at each side randomly puts a tile out on there, which is going to be face down, and you're not going to know what it's going to say, but it's going to give you some sort of bonus to your military power in that territory. You then, over the course of your turn, can add more tiles to it, again, face down secretively, that you don't necessarily know what they're going to do, but they're generally, the ones you add are going to be better than the base ones. And so they're going to give you benefits. So you kind of have that little side action going on. And then the rest of the stuff that you're going to choose from is, what do you want to do out on the board? You're going to alternate, I go, you go, back and forth of choosing these action tiles that are out on this game. But I think there's like maybe 8 of them, or there could be 10 of them out there. And if I go first, I'm going to look and say, okay, I want to take this one, and I'm going to use that one. It's going to tell me exactly how many actions that I can do. And there are like 3 different symbols in this game. One is a diplomacy, like a diplomatic symbol. One is a market symbol, and one is a military symbol. And these tiles are going to have those symbols and a number next to them. So if it says If it has a 4 and it shows the diplomatic symbol, which I think is like the quill and paper, then I'm going to get 4 diplomatic action points to use, or I'm going to get 3 military points, so on and so forth. So that's kind of, you kind of look and choose, okay, well, what do I want to take? And, you know, if someone doesn't take it before you, then you can take it and you can use it. Sounds pretty simple, and it is. But before you take those tiles, you're also looking to see not only what the symbol is, but do those symbols correspond to any of the potential icons you have on those 5 cards that you drew out of the event deck? Because if they do, then you can then use the bonuses on the cards. Otherwise, you're just using the card for the base thing that it gives you, or you're not going to use it at all because it isn't going to benefit you. So you're looking to try to coordinate the icons with the icons on the action sheets. I also talked about there's the little icons on the cards that have the little cross symbols. The cards off to the side that you don't draw out of the event deck that you draw at the beginning, these are called your ministry cards. And you're going to get different ministry cards based on the phase that you're in. So for the War of Spanish Succession, I think there's 5 ministry cards in your hand or in your deck. You take those 5 cards and you can pick any 2 that you want. Your choice, which ones you want to start with. You place them down on your little ministry board and you place them face down. You can look at them at any time to see what you have, to remind yourself what you have. But each of those 5 ministry cards is going to have a keyword. One could be mercantilism. One could be, I don't know, like intellectualism or something like that. And you're hoping to tie or to coordinate that keyword with a keyword on your event card that you're going to play. But it only matters if you have that little cross symbol on there, which allows you to do it. Well, maybe all the cards have the cross symbol, but it just allows you to, if you have the keyword, that you can do it as well. But so let's say you have a mercantilism ministry card and you have it face down on your ministry board. Before you can play it, you have to flip it over. If it's not flipped over, you can't play it with an event card, but you can flip it over at any time. So, you know, it's not like you have to do it in any certain order. But here's where that dilemma is. Once you flip your ministry card over, you are locked into that ministry card until the next phase begins. So if we're in the War of Spanish Succession, I'm going to have that ministry card locked in for this turn and next turn. It's not going to go away until the War of Austrian Succession starts. And when you look at these ministry cards, they're going to have little symbols down the side. One will represent Spanish Succession, one will be Austrian Succession, one will be the 7 Years' War. If it has a Spanish Succession symbol or letter and a Austrian Succession symbol, that means it's good for both of those. If I lock it in, I've locked it in now for both of those time periods. If it has all 3 of them, I've locked it in now for all 3 of those time periods. Now, that could be good, that could be bad, but it is going to lock you into focusing on that keyword. And so sometimes there's that dilemma of, I want to use it, but if I lock it in, man, I am locking it in forever. As long as you don't flip that ministry card, you can get rid of it. But once it's flipped over, you're locked into it until it goes away. And that may be the next phase. It could be the entire game. So it could be limiting, or it could just give you really good focus on what you want to do for the game. So you have those, you have the event cards, you have the action shits that you're flipping over or that you're taking off the board. And then you're using those actions to either put flags out. If you put flags out on markets, you are now basically gathering that resource. If you put flags out for the military, you can either take a chit at random and put it on the battle board, or you can build navies, or you can move your navies to different areas of the board. And all these areas on the board are going to give you something. It's just going to be market, or it's going to give you more influence in that area. Or there are lots of spaces out there that if you go there and you claim it, it then has a little side connecting area, which will say, okay, this is the Iroquois conflict. So you take these conflict chits, which is another stack, and you put it in front of you, and you can use them at any time. And it'll tell you what you can do with it. So like if you take the Iroquois conflict chit, it allows me to put a conflict marker out on one of my opponent's fur trading markets, which now means they no longer get the fur trade in that area. And they also don't get to count their flag in that area when it comes to area majority. And so there's a bunch of these little things. And I think, I mean, I've only played the game once, and that was only, we didn't play a full game of it. But from my understanding, these are pretty potent and powerful things because it's not only negating your flags for area majority, but it's also limiting your market abilities. At the end of the phase, so turn, whatever you want to call it, I guess we'll call them turns. So we go back and forth, and we each take 4 actions. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get 4 action tiles. You're going to get 4 action tiles. That turn's going to end. We're now going to kind of do the scoring. We're going to score for different things. We're going to score for that battle board. So we're going to look at that battle board, and it's going to say, okay, in North America, whoever's got the most flags is going to get, +1. Whoever controls, if someone has a navy in this area, is going to get, +1. It's going to have like maybe 4 or 5 different things. You're going to look to see what your total amount is from that. You're going to flip over those tiles, and it's going to tell you, if you've got a +2 or +3 or whatever. And then depending on the margin that you beat your opponent by or that you lose by, it's going to tell you what you do. So if you win by a lot, you could possibly get, you could raise your debt level, which we haven't talked about yet, but I'll explain. You could raise your debt level, meaning you could take more debt on. You could raise your, you could get treaty points. Treaty points are kind of like little bonus points that you can spend during one of your turns to give you more actions. And then it does, or it could give you just victory points as well. So the victory points in this one is kind of a, we didn't really talk about on the episode, but when we played Combat Commander, the scoring on that just kind of goes back and forth, seesaws. That's what this one is. The French win if it gets all the way down to the 30, and the British win if it gets all the way up to the 1. So it's just constant, just back and forth, back and forth. So it could give you victory points. And then so you're going to do the battle board. You're then going to also look at the market. So randomly at the beginning of each turn, there's 6 different commodities. You're going to randomly flip over 3 commodity chits, and those are the 3 commodities that are going to score for that turn. And that's generally what people are going to try to focus on. So it could be cotton. So India could be really important this turn. Or it could be furs, North America, sugar, whatever. And you're going to look to see who has the most flags in the different commodity spaces within those territories. And then they're going to score. It's going to score the same way. It could give you treaty points, could give you victory points, so on and so forth. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And then there's another one that just scores for the area majorities within the areas of the non-marketplaces. You score that turn is over. You then move to the second part of that phase. So the second part of the War of Spanish Succession. What I found interesting was that you take that battle board that you had for the first phase, you flip it over, it's got the same territories, but now it's not going to score the same way. Each of those territories is going to have something slightly different that it does, and the rewards may be slightly different as well. And especially in Europe, it escalates, and it escalates along the lines of the Jacobite Rebellion. And if I'm the French, if I can support that and help it grow and fester, that is one of the best ways to take the English down during this period. And so you'll kind of see this theme grow from one battle board to the next battle board as to what becomes important and things like that. The same with, even though the commodities are random, you'll see that, okay, if I, like in the game we played, I mean, Dan had a foothold in India. And by the time I really, kind of paid attention to it, there was no way I was going to ever beat him in area majority. So I knew he was going to score pretty good for cotton because cotton was scoring that turn. So I hedged my bets and I went with a couple other areas thinking, well, initially I thought it would be the other 3 commodities that would automatically score next turn. That's not the case. They are still randomly put out there. So still kind of luck of the draw, but I hedged my bets that maybe those commodities were going to score next time. So you can kind of play the odds and try to, hope that the market swings your way, or you could, fight for those markets and try to knock them out of there. I I enjoyed the game quite a bit. I mean, we only scratched the surface of it. I mean, I always liked Twilight Struggle, but thematically, I like this theme a lot better. I just like this time period, and I like. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on in this game. The battle board is really interesting because, again, I mean, it's very abstracted war. I mean, you're only putting some random unknown tiles out there. Now there is one of the actions that you can choose if it's available out on those activation tiles you're drawing or that you're choosing to play, where you can flip over and look at what some of your tiles are, like not the random ones you put out, but or not the ones that you purchased to put out, but the random ones that go out at the beginning. And you can look at it, and you can, if you want to keep it, you can keep it. If not, you can swap it out with another random one. So there is a little bit that you can know, but I'm not sure that it's, that is detrimental, that if you never choose to do that, I mean, you're just going to get what they are. The other thing about this that I really enjoyed is the whole idea of the debt. So each country starts out with a debt limit, and say it's 8, and you start out with your little money marker down at 0. You can choose to spend debt to take extra actions. But as you spend debt and it gets closer to your debt limit, you better hope you have ways of raising your debt limit, because if you ever exceed it, it is punishing and brutal. So, but you are abstractly spending money to influence what you can do. Maybe it's corner more markets, buy military stuff, whatever. There's a lot of things that you can manage, and that you get to choose how you want to spend them, whether it's the debt or whether it's your actions, whether it's your ministry cards. When do I want to use them? Maybe I don't want to, because while I get to choose which ones at the beginning, I put down mercantilism and say intellectualism. If I don't ever draw event cards out of the deck that have those same keywords, do I, maybe I'm never going to get to use them. But again, if I flip them and they're they have the thing for 3 turn, or for all 3 phases, I'm locked into that card forever. So I think if you like the time period, and if you like area majority is part of the game, but it's not like a typical area majority game. I mean, yeah, there felt like times where it's like, okay, well, I want to take this. Oh, he's going to come in and knock me out. It's always more expensive to knock somebody out than it is to take it yourself, unabated the first time. But there are ways to lessen that cost as well. The event cards are interesting, for sure. I mean, they're historical for one, but being able to use them at the right time obviously is key. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was that market, not really market manipulation, because you're not changing what the pricing is on stuff, but you are fighting for those territories. Or you can just hedge your bets and say, okay, well, fish has got to get scored sometime. I'm gonna corner the market on fish at this point in time. But at the same time, your opponent always has the ability to come in and take over territories, use those conflict markers to disrupt the markets and stuff like that. It's a pretty interesting game. Like I said, I've only scratched the surface of it, but this is a game they do have it on Vassal, and I think we should try it sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard that it was the successor to Twilight Struggle. I've enjoyed my plays of Twilight Struggle. I never feel like I'm playing Twilight Struggle well, because it's always, 3 or 4 years in between plays. It's the same issue I have with Terraforming Mars. I always feel like I'm restarting and kind of relearning the game every time I play Twilight Struggle. So I've never built up that knowledge to really enjoy the game to its fullest extent. And I have Twilight Struggle. I have 1969, which is along the same idea of the card play and getting your chits on the board to get different states and all that. I do enjoy the time period. So I think this is one that I would happily play with you on Vassal. I'm not sure I'd rush out and buy it just yet, just because I've got 2 other games that sound similar in terms of mechanism that I just haven't been able to get to the table on a regular basis. I'm not sure I need another one that's not going to hit the table on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, I totally understand that. I think so on BGG, this says it's a 3.9 for the weight. which the thing that I struggled with at the beginning of when I played this was just wrapping my head around the whole. I'm looking, okay, so you have the action shits that you're pulling, and you have a symbol at the top, and then you have a symbol down in the bottom. The symbol at the top is your primary action. You can only spin those actions um, on certain things. Or I'm sorry, you can only add debt to the action that you're taking at the top. You can't add debt to the secondary action. But then I'm also looking, okay, so I need that symbol to then also be on my event cards, because then I can play those event cards for the bonus. But they don't have the symbol, I can't play it for the bonus. And then, so I'm looking at that. And then I'm also looking at, okay, but then I'm looking for the keyword, and I want the keyword to match my ministry cards. Do I want to flip my ministry card and lock myself into that? And then I thought there was something to do with the cross symbol, but the cross symbols are on all of the cards, and I forget exactly what that determines. But and then I thought Dan had said, well, yeah, if you have this symbol, then you also get an extra action. He's like, no, he's like, that's not right. So it was just trying to remember exactly how all those things worked, what I needed to look for. Once you get that understood, the symbol, there's only 3 icons really in the game: market, military, and diplomatic. And then the board is pretty well laid out with either circles, or they're not, they're diamonds, and then there are ones that are kind of like fort shaped. And that's pretty much, I mean, that pretty much tells you what they are and what you're going to spend the actions to do. And then it has a really nice player boards that tells you, okay, this is what you can do, and this is how much it's going to cost. So for military, you basically can buy a chit, put it out there. You can build a navy for 4 military points, or if you already have navies built, it'll cost you 1 action to move it from because there's like a little navy box out on there where they're not assigned anywhere. It'll cost you, 1 point to move it to here, or 2 points if you want to do this, or 3 points if you want to do this. And the player aids are really nice in it. So it kind of lays it out for you and does the same thing with the other one. So if I want to get your flag out of a territory, this is how many action points it's going to cost. And sometimes you have enough action points and you don't have to worry about spending debt. And sometimes you have those extra treaty points, which are just bonuses you can spend on anything. And so at first I thought, well, I don't care, whatever, it's a treaty point. But let me tell you, as the game goes on, those treaty points are going to be more and more important. And just that whole managing of the debt and that seesaw back and forth, the battle boards really intrigued me though, because I thought they were going to be the same, like from side to side, but they do change. I mean, they're not dramatically changing, but the one for the Jacobite Rebellion, I mean, it really kind of escalates and ramps up. And that ministry card that ties into the Jacobite Rebellion is going to lock you in for the entire game. But if you get the event cards and if you plan your strategy around that, that can be a major thorn in the British side. So I enjoyed it. Again, I've only played it the one time, and that was a half a game at best. But yeah, I'm a little surprised it's not ranked higher on BGG. It's only like 800, and what Twilight Struggle was #1 for years. So I don't know if it's because of the theme. I mean, it is technically, I guess, about the colonial period, or if it's just one where people, Twilight Struggle, people are like, why would I need that if I have Twilight Struggle? But I think to me, I think it does a lot more than Twilight Struggle. I think
it sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not complicated in what you're doing, but there's a lot of little things that you need to manage in this game.
Yeah. It sounds like there's more going on your turn than Twilight Struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could just also be, it's a whole other discussion we could have over whether heavier games like this, when they come out, when Twilight Struggle came out, there were less, the people that were using Board Game Geek were more of the hardcore gamers, which means they like heavier games. Now that there's open to a much wider group, those heavier games have a lesser fan base. Yeah, percentage wise.
I mean, it could be. I know it's. I don't think the second printing has come out yet. Maybe it has, but it did well enough that it's already in its second printing. So, yeah. All right. So, anyways, that's Imperial Struggle by GMT, designed by Ananda Gupta and Jason Matthews.
So my second game is one that Dean kind of referred to that he prefers, and this is one called Skeptics. And what's really unfortunate is this game isn't published yet, and actually failed its Kickstarter. Now, the good thing is that it is coming back for a second Kickstarter, so I'm hoping this will eventually make it to stores. But it is another co-op game, and the idea of this one is it is a game where we are a group of investigators, and we get called in to investigate paranormal activities. So our latest case is essentially this game. We've been brought in to see whether these ghosts are real. We've always proven the ghosts fake before, or be able to explain them away. This time we think that there actually is a ghost here. So it's our job to prove that this ghost exists. To set up the game, you're going to pick one of two sides. There's two sides to the game board. I think one's an asylum, one's a hospital or something like that. I forget what the two sides are. And then you're going to pick a ghost or a paranormal thing that you're trying to investigate. And there's several of them that come in the base game. And we just picked the easy one, which is the child ghost. Each of us is going to be playing one of the investigators. So we have a little standee, and we're in the entranceway of the board. All the different areas on the board are going to have little search icons on them, and there'll be basically different symbols like cobwebs, cameras, and eyes, for example. And they're going to be different combinations of that. It could be just be one symbol. It could be, you need two eyes and a camera or whatever else, because there's also dice in this game. There are going to be decks of cards that are set off to one side, and the way the game works is whatever ghost you pick is going to have a ghost card. That's going to tell you what happens when the ghost appears and what you need to prove that this ghost exists and whether they have any special rules for it. On players' turns, you have 4 actions, typical actions. You can move, you can search. And if you search, you're going to take 3 dice. And in this case, they're 3 blue dice. And again, you're going to be looking at the search symbols that are on your location and try and roll that on the dice. If you fail, you can take another action to re-roll. But if you do that, you can actually keep as many dice as you want from your first roll. So as long as you do the same action over and over again, you can basically be like Yahtzee and keep dice from previous actions. Let's say you do get all the required symbols, then you're going to turn over the search token and find out what you found. It could be nothing, it could be an item, it could be a special item, or it could be a clue. At the top of the board, there's going to be 5 clue cards that are going to be face down. If you find a clue, and there'll be 5 of them on the board under the search icons, you get to pick one of the clues and turn the card over, and that's going to be something that you have to do. Again, it's going to be rolling the blue dice, getting combinations or whatever else. You're going to put the clue marker on the card, and you're going to put the matching one on the board. So you have to be in that location where that clue was found to try and solve that clue. So if you actually solve the clue, you turn the clue card over and you get what's called a summoning die, which is a white die. And that summoning die has a special face, I think, on 2 sides of the die, and the other 4 sides are blank. I think that's what it is. After everybody's taken their turn and done all these different things, you're going to be opening doors, which is going to be rolling a set of dice, moving, searching, maybe trading items with other people, or dropping things, because you can only hold so many items basically in your hands. You're going to advance the clock. When the clock reaches 12, the ghost appears. You're going to pull a card from what's called the room deck and find out what room the ghost appears. When the ghost is on the board, everybody gets 1 round to try and get to the ghost, and they call the action proving. And that's going to be, again, rolling dice to try and match symbols on his board. So his board will have a whole bunch of these little boxes. And above the boxes will be the symbols on the blue dice of what you have to roll. So you would go to where the ghost is, and you could say, okay, I'm going to attempt the 1 cobweb. So you roll the 3 dice, you got a cobweb. Okay, he's now complete on that thing. We've 1 step closer to proving that he exists. Our whole point is to mark off all those boxes on his ghost board to prove that he exists, then we win. If we all take our turn and we advance the clock hands by, again, 15 minutes, he disappears. So every 3 rounds we have, he's then going to appear, which means then we have to rush. Now, getting those white dice by solving the clues gives us the ability to actually summon the ghost earlier. So as soon as we have as a group one white die and it's usable by anybody, we can say we're going to try and summon the ghost. If you do that, you're going to roll however many white dice the group has got. And if you have one ghost symbol or more, he's going to appear. Then you're going to draw another room card and it's going to show you where they appear. Every time you draw a card from the room card, you're going to be putting a red chit on that room, which means he's never going to show up there again. So you're kind of narrowing down as the game goes on the rooms that the ghost can appear at. The unfortunate part is the beginning of the game, you're going to removing blindly some of the room cards out of the room deck. So you're never going to have 100% information, but you are dwindling the areas of where that ghost could be. So you can hopefully plan as you get more powerful. So you can summon a ghost, and when the ghost has appeared, you can also do what's called a pull, which is, again, you roll however many white dice that the group has, and if you get one ghost symbol, you can pull the ghost in any direction you want. You can even pull them through a closed door, but then that uses up all the pull movement. If you're just pulling them down like an empty room, I think you can pull them twice or three times. I forget how far you can pull them. Because sometimes maybe you're too far away, but you're first in the turn order and the other person's closer. So you can pull the ghost towards the other person to make sure that they have more options to try and more actions to try and prove that the ghost exists. If you run out of room cards, the game is over. You can also do, what's it called? You get the little, when you solve the clues.
You can do the seance.
Because when you solve the clues, you also get the opportunity to turn over another chit to try and find the ones that match the ghost. If you can get the 4s that match the ghost, you can go into the ghost mode, which means he's always out there, but then the game kind of ramps up in speed. Or you can try and do a seance, which is, again, bring him out so you can, everybody gets an extra chance to kind of fight him. So, but every time he appears, he draws out of that room deck. The other thing that's going to happen every round is you're going to be drawing a card from the environment deck, which is usually going to be something bad, like all the doors are locked, or there's a fire breaks out and you have to try and put out the fire, or the lights go off and you can only move one step, those type of things. Or if anybody is holding the teddy bear, you're safe, but everyone else loses an action that round. Something like that is going to happen each round. Of course, Dean and I failed. We got reasonably close.
No, we beat him on the very last turn. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Because the child ghost, you have to solve 4 pretty easy ones first. You have to prove 4 relatively easy things before you go into his main stuff. And some of his main stuff is going to be special symbols. It could be sometimes you can't keep dice from action to action, even if you're taking the same action twice. So if I'm trying to roll this thing on his card, you have to roll it all in a single roll, no keeping any dice the next one. Or it could be if you fail, the group gets a timer chit. And if someone pulls the 3rd timer chit, their turn's over. Even if it's on their first action, their turn's over, you advance the clock. So we're trying to do that. And yeah, of course, it was the easy mode that we were playing at. So we were able to do it, but we were doing it basically by the skin of our teeth. We got down to, like, if we didn't solve it now, we probably weren't going to be able to do it later on. And again, run out of room cards, game's over. And if you're able to prove everything on his card, you've won. I'm interested to try some of the other ghosts that are in there. And depending on which side of the board you're playing on, will change some of the environment cards. So some of the environment cards will only be applicable to the asylum. Some of them will only be applicable to the hospital, or whatever the 2 sides are. But there's also a set of common ones. So I like that the side of the board is going to change up. And I like that there's different ghosts you can play on both sides. So all in all, if you're looking for a co-op game and you're looking for a dark theme, I enjoyed this one, Skeptics, more than Masters of the Night. I thought it offered up something different than your regular co-op game. And like I said, unfortunately, it looks like this is done. It's one artist I think it's the artist is a designer. And I believe that the company was created just to publish this game. That kind of gets me really nervous. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, I don't know why another company wouldn't pick this game up, because it's in a finished state. I mean, the card art is there. It's I thought it was quite nicely done. The rule book is pretty solid. The gameplay works. I had no issues with it. It was quite enjoyable. That I think the biggest problem is I think he's trying to go on into loan.
Well, so I will say it has relaunched on Kickstarter.
Oh, has it? I know when we looked
And
at it, it was just about to relaunch.
yeah, and it has funded.
Good.
It is their base goal was 18,000. It's at just under 24,000. It's got just under 500 backers. So the price point is $50 before shipping. And I think the shipping to me personally is a little high even for the US. It's $16, but you know what? If they're a small company, they're probably not getting a big break, and maybe they're sending them out all, US postal priority mail. The only thing that's going to keep me right now from backing this is that, let's see, when is it supposed to what's this? Trying to think when it was supposed to ship by. Does it say? Well, so anyways, the thing that probably keep me, so it's going to be May of 2022, and depending on when the backer kit or the little survey and stuff would come out, I'm not sure where I'll be at that point in time. So if I did it, I maybe would have to send it to my son's house or whatever, because I did really enjoy this game. It's unlocked 3 new ghosts so far with their stretch goals. And their first stretch goal was a soundtrack. Yeah, whatever. I could care less about that. But I think it has done 3 new ghosts, which is cool because I think you said it came with 6. Now on Tabletopia, it only gives you the option of ever playing with 1, right? Just the easy one.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, which I mean is fine, but if it hadn't funded, I wish it would have had I would have had all of them on there because I did enjoy the game. I like this type of co-op where it's not just finding the monster and beating the crap out of them. You have to work your way through those different requirements on the ghost card of rolling the symbols on the dice. And well, I don't think you could get away without ever getting all or without attempting to get the clues. I guess you could, because they're just going to give you the token. You'd never be able to do a seance if you didn't have the clues.
But getting the clues gives you the white dice, which means you can then do the pull. If you have no white dice, you can't pull the ghost anywhere.
Yeah, so that is true. So you're not going to be able to get away with not doing the clues. And part of the fun is, okay, I want to go into this room. Okay, so I need to roll the dice to try to get the clue. I get the clue. Oh, it's nothing. Or I get the clue and it's an item. Or if you're like Graham, who got every item and every special item, I'm standing there with a toothpick. I think I felt like I spent the entire game just summoning and trying to pull the ghost so that Graham could go in and decide which of his mighty items he was going to do. But you do have a limit on how many things you can carry. And sometimes they give you extra dice. Sometimes they allow you to manipulate the dice. It wasn't like you were going in there with a zombie side. Oh, I have a chainsaw. I have a shotgun. They're very paranormal, investigative type of things that you're going to use on there. I like how the game works. And I like how if you go to summon, you got to roll those white dice. And I think you said this. If you don't summon the ghost, you have to draw a room card out of the deck and put it off to the side. So you're already losing 3 room cards at the beginning. You're then drawing one, and I think I rolled horribly at least 3 times.
Yeah.
And so, which not only shortens the deck or lessens the deck, which means the game can end sooner, but it also takes away from your information of where you think the ghost is going to come when you do summon it. And that's part of the fun of the game. We were sitting there at times like, okay, so if we summon them, we need it to be summoned to this room, or this room, not this room or this room, because we can't, we'll never be able to pull it, or it'll lock the doors or whatever. And the one turn we did it went exactly to the one room we said we cannot have it go there.
Yeah.
And then how we won was there was the room right by the lobby. Like, hey, this is where we need the ghost to come to. If it comes here, we can beat them as long as we can, do the die roll. And that's the room that it came to. You were able to, I don't know, whoever rolled the dice or whatever, but I think we had one thing left to tick off on the dice that was required to defeat them. And that's how we were able to do it. I think it does some unique things or at least things that maybe others have tried but didn't pull off as well. I think it's a good game.
Yeah.
I was happy with playing it. And like I said, it's a $50 price point. I might back it. You know, especially now that it's got 3 more ghosts. So that's 9 different ghosts. Shoot, if I played and got through all those ghosts, I definitely would have gotten my money's worth for sure.
Yeah. And again, there's the 2 sides to the board too. And so the room layout's going to be different. So the side we played on, I think, was the hospital side. So you had like a main ward, but then you also had like a little passage, like a little corridor full of rooms. So getting all those doors open was critical, because if the ghost appeared in one of those rooms, opening doors can be difficult, because sometimes it's just going to be on 3 dice. You just need 1 key. Sometimes you need 2 or 3 keys. Getting 3 keys is tough.
Yeah, especially when somebody hoards all the extra keys.
I had the skeleton key and I had the key ring. But even to that, one thing I really did enjoy was not only if you're in the same spot, I could give you an item or we could trade. I could drop it on the board. And there's these little chits that you say, I'm going to drop the key ring here, and you put the little chit on the board like this is A, and you put the matching A token on the key ring. So someone else could come and pick up A and they would get the key ring. So it's not gone out of the game. You've basically literally just left it on the ground. Someone else can walk by and pick it back up, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was fun.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we found this on Tabletopia when we decided to play a game a week or so ago. And yeah, we both really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to this one hitting stores. I'm glad that it's now being funded on Kickstarter. So I look forward to playing Dean's copy.
Yeah. And so this right now it's got 17 days. So when this airs, it'll probably have about 10 days left on the Kickstarter if you're interested in it. So that is Skeptics. The game it's Skeptics. It's Skeptics.
It's
Company is Uziak.
Yeah.
It's from Buffalo, so I'm guessing it's probably Polish. Uziak Games and Designs from Buffalo, New York. Check it out if you're interested. If it's something that thematically, and it reminded me of some of Lobotomy. It reminded me, I think, of maybe what they were hoping to do with Coma Ward, but it definitely pulled it off well in this game, in my opinion.
And it plays 45 minutes to an hour. So it's not an overly long one, but it's a good length. It was enjoyable. So
yeah, it was fun. So that's our first bites. 4 games, a little bit of everything to choose from. A couple of co-ops, a nice little area control, and a deduction style game that you could play solo or multiplayer. So hopefully something in there piqued your curiosity, tickled your fancy.
Yes, tickled your fancy.
There you go. So are we going to get this Ask the Chef question in? Because I know Graham's under a time crunch. We have postponed this question. And it's ironic because the question, so the question is actually about, do you think some designers have been passed up by the demands of the consumer? So have they become outdated? Much like this question is starting to become. We can keep this short if you want to do it, or if you want to say no, that's up to you, Graham.
We can keep it short. So my answer is no.
All right. So, and I don't remember what prompted me to think about this. So, there are some designers, sometimes we talk about some that maybe they just don't resonate with us, but I think there are some designers, in my opinion, that have been passed up by what consumers are now demanding today in their games. And I don't know if that's just that they know what they like to design. They're good at it. They want to stick with it, and they're still making money, or maybe it's not their full-time job. So they're just passion projects. Do you think that I'm totally wrong and off base on that? Or do you think that that's just a natural thing, like kind of within this hobby, that it's always evolving? I mean, it sounds weird because, when you first get in the hobby, you think to yourself, well, there's only so many ways to make a game, but we're constantly seeing new innovations within game design. And then we're seeing other people who just reskin and retheme the same thing over and over again and slap a new name on it. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's like anything else creative from a designer point of view, that once you find something that works, it's difficult to break out of that mold. So if you get someone like, there's very few designers that tend to be able to reinvent themselves every couple of years to kind of keep up with the trends. Some of them do. Like if I look at Feld games feel very similar, but he did go through certain stages. He did a whole series where it's very punished. It was really the players against the game that were very punishing towards the players, like with the rats. Then he kind of went into more of the open, everything scores you points. And that's kind of where he is now. And he's been like that for a little while. Rosenberg started off with Bonanza and little card games, and then did Agricola. And then he did a whole series of farming games. And then he reinvented himself to be the Pentomino, with his cottage garden and patchwork, and kind of redid that. So he's tried to keep up with some of the trends. But I think for a lot of designers, they get known for one style of game, and that's what they keep on doing. But then I think maybe that style of game isn't ageless. So the people that liked it when it first came out will continue to like the games that designer publishes. But the new people may look back at those designs and say, well, they look outdated. And if you're not designing for the new people, then you're going to be, unfortunately, kind of left in the dust.
So let me throw this question at you. I don't know, last episode, 2 episodes ago, we discussed that it's hard for us to automatically buy a game from designers now, unless it's maybe a Feld, because they seem to be all over the place. Like we talked about Pfister, you're not sure what you're going to get with Pfister. Same way with Rosenberg to a certain degree.
Yep.
And we kind of made that seem like that was a negative. But yet now we're saying that if they're not redesigning or redeveloping themselves or coming out with something new, then they're just kind of stuck in the past. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
I think, okay, I'll give you an example. Dirk Hein, who did Alhambra.
Mm-hmm.
He did a bunch of stuff in the late 90s and early 2000s that he's well known for. Alhambra is probably one of his biggest ones. He hasn't published a lot recently. He did Wallenstein and Shogun and Alhambra. So like a couple of really big games that were well known. He then did the Alhambra roll and write last year. So then the end of last year, he came out with the roll and write because everybody's doing roll and writes. I don't think he did a good job on that. I do not like the Alhambra roll and write because it seemed like he was trying to come up with a new trend, but he's kind of at the tail end of the roll and writes. That I'm kind of looking at him going, I think you've been left in the dust. I think your designs are from the late 90s, early 2000s. I think if you can reinvent yourself well, and I don't particularly like Uwe Rosenberg's lighter games, or I don't like everything that Pfister has done either, but they're at least trying to be at the leading edge and not the trailing edge of the trends. So, Pfister came out with like, Oh My Good several years ago. And then he kind of transitioned into more heavier Euro games. And again, with Rosenberg, he was at the beginning of the heavier Euros with Agricola. I mean, that was a huge game when it came out. So he wrote that for a little bit, well, for quite a while. And then he tried to get on the Tetraminos things early on and did Cottage Garden, which did really well, and Patchwork, which did really well. So he was kind of at the leading edge of that. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what he does next. Not that I like the Tetris style games, but he seems to have his thumb more on the trends than someone like Dirk Hein did, who really seemed to just said, I need a game. People seem to be roll and write, so let's throw out this roll and write game. Really, after many, many years of there being really good, solid roll and writes, his feels like a first attempt when roll and writes were early on, when people didn't know how to do them well. His roll and write feels like he belonged at the beginning of the wave to really set at the once it's kind of crested, his stuff felt outdated. Yeah,
and I can see where, and I'm not saying that this is him because I don't know what his thought process was, but I could see that if you're coming in like on the tail end of the roll and writes and you're just doing it because everyone's got a roll and write and hey, let's have a cash grab. If your heart's not really in it, that's probably going to come through. in your design. And I don't think every game translates necessarily into a roll and write. They did, or into a dice game, for, everyone, you got Istanbul, the dice game, everyone tries to come up with a dice game, which I understand why they're doing it, because it's maybe more family friendly and people understand dice. But if they're, sometimes they just seem like an afterthought. Like you said, it's like, okay, well, got to put something out, people are willing to pay me to do it, so I'll go ahead and do this. When I initially thought about this question, I mean, I've never hidden the fact that I'm not a super, Knizia fan. There's some things that he does that I enjoy, and there are a lot of things he does that I don't enjoy. And I kind of was thinking about him from the standpoint of his things seem to be pretty similar in, mechanism that he chooses, or how he implements the game. And is he one that is just like, what, this is what I do, this is what I like to do, screw it, buy it if you want to buy it, don't buy it, I don't care? He has that luxury? Or is it just that they choose not to necessarily stay up with I wouldn't say stay up with the times, but consumers can be fickle and what they want and what their demands are. So rather than always chasing the cat's tail, just stick with what you're doing. But then I think about a game that he just recently did in the last couple of years, which I haven't played, but I've heard nothing negative ever about this game, and that is My City.
Yeah.
And My City is supposed to be, I don't know if it's considered a legacy game, but it's pretty legacy-esque. But I heard great things about it, and to me, that is so out of the box for Knizia that I really do want to get that game, but it's like impossible to find.
Yeah, it's funny with Knizia, because I say Knizia is kind of stuck in the past until I look at his games, because he had My City, he had Llama, which is a card game, he had the Quest for El Dorado, which was a deck building game, he had Fitz, which is again a kind of a Tetris thing side. He was the Lord of the Rings, I forget what the actual name of it was, but his co-op game was like the first real true co-op game. That he has kind of been at the leading edge in an awful lot of things. And when I look at his more recent games, I'm thinking maybe I should give his stuff a try again, because there's an awful lot of stuff that Knizia, he's put out a massive amount of games. And I think maybe that's the problem, is he, out of his 200 games that he's put out, I may like 15 of them. But that means I have to weed through, 185 games to kind of find the ones I like. And I'm not sure I want to do that with Knizia. Because even the games I do like from Knizia, they're not in my top 10.
Yeah. And that was going to be my other question was, do you think someone like him, that it's a detriment to have been around as long as you've been around, to produce as many games as you've produced, that when someone says, oh, it's a new Knizia game, that people that have been in the hobby a long time automatically think, okay, well, I know what that's going to be. I had my database of Knizia games kind of funnels me into thinking this is the type of game it's going to be, and kind of blow it off because I feel that Knizia only does this type of game, when that's not true. You just rattled off a bunch of games that he's done that are totally different. But I think that's kind of I think at a time it can be a detriment to have so much out there that you get a reputation for only doing this, when that's not the case.
And I think that's probably one of the I guess I'm going to say problems. I mean, he is a professional designer. This is what he does, but he's publishing, a couple games a year, maybe, which means it's hard for people to figure out which ones they like and which ones they don't like. So Stefan Feld puts out a game every couple of years, and I look forward to his latest game. I mean, one year he published both. He published Forum Trajanum and Carpe Diem. And of them, I like Forum Trajanum much better than Carpe Diem, but neither one of them I love. I think they're both good. I just don't love them. For Knizia, he will do 2 new games and then 1 or 2 reprints with a new theme on it in a year. So you're seeing all these Knizia games out there, and I think it is a detriment when you have such a wide variety of games and so many of them. You can't say I'm a Knizia fan, because if you don't like auctions, well, you're not going to like Raw. If you don't like card games, you may not like Blue Moon City, or you're not going to like whatever Llama, for example. If you don't like confrontational games, then you're not going to like Yellow and Yangtze and the original one that was reprinted from what was his other, the one that Yellow and Yangtze is based on. Come on,
No. Yeah, with my vast
Tigris and Euphrates.
There you go.
Yeah. So he's got a wide variety of games that obviously aren't going to appeal to all people. So you get, like I said, I don't think you'd say you'd find someone like you like most of Pfister stuff. You're willing to try most of Pfister stuff because you kind of know what you're going to get. I like Feld and Rosenberg. I will tend to try their new stuff. Knizia, because he's all over the board, and this kind of goes against what we were saying before, because he's all over the board, it's like I have no idea what I'm going to get when I pick up a Knizia game. It could be a very light card game. It could be a very mean game like Yellow and Yangtze. It could be a roll and write. It's a roll and write for my city, or is it the Tetris placed one? Whichever one that is.
I think it's tile placement.
Yeah, so it's like a tile placement, or it could be something like Fits. It could be a co-op game like Lord of the Rings. It could be a little card game like Battle Line. I have no idea what I'm going to get from him. So I'm always a little leery about Knizia. And I think it's because of the breadth of stuff that he's done.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's no doubt, I mean, that he's designed a lot of stuff, and he's designed a lot of good stuff. He's designed a lot of stuff that we may particularly not find is enjoyable to us. Doesn't mean that other people don't love it. I mean, there are people that absolutely will devour anything that's put out by Knizia. He's their top designer. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, they probably feel the same way if I would say that about Pfister or about Feld or whatever. But I think part of it though, I think a lot of it though has to do with how much we enjoyed their earlier stuff. If say Richard Garfield, Richard Garfield has hung his hat on Magic, and rightly so. But if he comes out with something new, people are going to give it a try because it's Richard Garfield. I mean, he doesn't have the amount of stuff that a Knizia has done, but people that enjoyed his stuff are always going to give it a try versus if someone hated Magic, then they're not going to give it a try.
But he has hung his hat on Magic, but he also has not rested on his laurels. So he did Magic. Right. He did Robo Rally, which is very highly thought of. He did King of Tokyo, again, a huge game. He did Keyforge with a whole unique decks and all that, which was, when it came out, it was huge. So he has kind of hung his hat on, yes, I'm the Magic guy, but he also hasn't turned around and just pushed out garbage. He's tried to make really good quality games. So yeah, I could see why he's the Magic guy, but he's also got a good solid base of games that, again, they're all, Robo Rally is nothing like Magic, and Magic is nothing like King of Tokyo, but they're all really good games in their genres.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't want it to sound like, we're coming down on Knizia, because obviously we're probably in the minority on it, and there are games that he has that I really enjoy.
But my issue with that is, I'm not saying he's a bad designer. What I'm saying is he tends to design for almost everybody, which is good and bad, because not everybody's going to like everything. So when he said that there are hardcore Knizia fans out there, it's like, I'm sure there are, but I'm kind of confused by it. So what type of game do you like? Because Knizia, because he is all over the board, and he does, they're fairly decent amount of what he tries his hand at. I'm not going to like everything he does. I'm not a big fan of modern art. And that's one of his, granddaddy games way back when. Because for me, modern art is very different from the Lord of the Rings, the co-op game, which is very different from Celtis, is very different from the Quest from El Dorado. I really enjoy Quest for El Dorado. But if I like that, am I going to like modern art? Am I going to like Medici? Am I going to like Taj Mahal? Am I going to like Battle Line? There's no connection to them. So I can't say I'm a Knizia fan. I'm a fan of some of Knizia's games, but as him as designer, he's too over the map for me.
Right. Do you think, and this is maybe a tad off topic, but would you rather have a designer that is always trying to chase what the consumer wants? Or would you rather have a designer who knows what he's good at, is passionate about his designs and what he wants to do? And if 20% of the hobby likes it, that's fine. He or she can say, you know what, that I'm good with that. This is not just a game. This is a piece of art that I'm designing for you.
I'd be more inclined to go with the second option. I don't think any designer should be chasing what the trends are. I think you should be designing what you think the trends will be and designing a good game for that. And like I'll go back to Alhambra, the dice game. It's, in my mind, it's not a good game because it feels like he's just chasing what they think people wanted. Everybody's doing a roll and write. You better do a roll and write. And he kind of did it and went, sure, here's something. And I think if you are chasing the trends, I don't think you have your passion for your games. You're just trying to get it out there because that's what everybody wants right now.
Right. So my follow-up to that would be, what percentage of people designing games today do you think are just chasing what they think the consumer wants? I mean, I would venture to guess that that's at least 50% of people that are designing games or publishers that are putting out games today.
Well, I think publishers and designers are two different things in terms of, because I mean, we've talked to designers, they're not turning around and designing, getting it published in a month.
Right.
So if you were designing a roll and write game now, you're chasing the tail end of the trend because your game is probably not going to come out for 6 months or a year's time. I think the publishers that are publishing roll and writes now are trying to get their money back on publishing roll and writes. Like they're just trying to say everybody wants roll and write. So, which of our designers that we've dealt with, what roll and write do you already have in your bottom drawer that we can publish now?
All right.
Not, I want you to do a roll and write to come out in 6 months or a year's time. So I think there's two different classes. I think there's a much larger majority of publishers that are looking for roll and writes that are good to go right now than there are designers saying, I want to design a roll and write.
Well, and I think as a publisher, you should be chasing the consumer. I mean, if roll and writes are the demand, you should be putting out games that are, because a publisher doesn't care. A publisher isn't going into publishing because, hey, I want to publish this very niche artistic game that very few people are going to buy. I could print 1,000 of them and hope to sell 1,000. Yeah. They wanted a game that's going to sell 20,000 copies or become a mass market sort of darling. So, I mean, it is totally different. I just, I think there are a lot of people designing games today, and you can see this by what's on Kickstarter. You can see it by what's coming out, that are just like, hey, I can do a roll and write, or I can do a dice game, or I can do a co-op game or whatever. Let's just slap this theme on it and, maybe change this one little thing. And let's see if, we can sell 10,000 copies.
But again, that's going to be, in my mind, that's not so much the designer, that's a publisher / Kickstarter thing. Because even if you're a designer and you are designing a roll and write game now, if you can sell it on Kickstarter, then you don't have to worry about in 6 months' time when no one likes roll and writes anymore, because you've already got the money up front. So yes, right. You're going to design a game, they're going to get the roll and write, and they might get the roll and write and go, I never want to play another roll and write again in my life, so I'm not going to play your game. Well, if it's in the stores with no Kickstarters, then you're going to lose that money. You've already got the money. So I could see why you'd want to, as a designer, saying, what's hot? Let's get it up on Kickstarter, because while it's hot, I can get the money, and then I can spend the time to make, hopefully, a decent game after that. You have to have a workable game, but you get more time with the guaranteed sales from Kickstarter to fully develop and get better art, or tweak the mechanisms or whatever. I think if you weren't going to Kickstarter and you decide, I'm going to do a roll and write, I'm going to start designing a roll and write today, I think you'd have a hard time with it, because I think by the time you are ready to present it to publishers, they'll look at it and say, this is not going to come out for 6 months. are roll and write still going to be a thing at that time? Because I think, again, we know nothing about the publishing side, but from general business that the board game seems to be, you need to be making most of your money when that game comes out first. Evergreen games seem to be few and far between. Like, think of Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride is always going to sell. But something like Welcome to, that original game did really well at the beginning, but people still aren't buying Welcome to in the same quantities that they did before, which is why they're coming out with new versions of it to hopefully get people to rebuy. It's just like when you buy a video game, you buy the base one and it's like, oh, in 6 months time, here's the DLC. You want to spend $5 on the DLC? It changes the game you enjoyed. Okay. All right. Then you do that to kind of keep in the public's eye. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I don't even know how we got to where we ended up, but I'm sure that was my fault.
Probably. Yeah, we'll blame you.
I guess I would ask our listeners, do you feel that there is do you feel there are any designers, or are there certain designers that you're excited about when they publish a new game because you know what you're going to get, and you don't care that they're not doing anything like, that they're not trying to, make a mass appeal game to the consumers. You like, whatever it is that their particular design is, whether it's a Feld or maybe there's a small designer that only comes out with games every couple of years, and you're just sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for it. I don't know. I don't know where people fall on it. I don't know if people. I mean, like anything else within the hobby, you and I both, they were rolling rights that we jumped on early on, and I think we're kind of over them. Same with dice games and whatever. But to me, I don't know, with dice games, it's like, if I really love the original implementation of the game, so say like Istanbul, I bought Istanbul, the dice game, but at the same time, there's a little bit of me that was offended that they even made a dice game. Like, why would you take such a good game and now make it into a dice game? And not that they don't have the right to do it, and not that it's not going to appeal to people, but it's like, I almost feel like, but if someone buys the dice game without ever playing the base game, they just buy it because it's a dice game, you've totally robbed them of the experience. And maybe it motivates them to play the original game, but I don't think it would, because if let's say they don't enjoy the dice game, why would they ever seek out the original game?
But yeah, but they've been doing that forever. There's the Catan, the card game. There is Ticket to Ride, the dice game, or dice game. Yeah, I think it's the dice game. I think it is trying to, if people like that, whether it is a style of game or whether it's a game in particular, you want to try and give them more options to enjoy that in different formats.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm just a vanilla ice cream guy. I don't understand why there's 31 other flavors or whatever there are. I mean, who needs it? It's ice cream. You don't need to change.
No, you just need to eat your unflavored yogurt.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Vanilla, or maybe if I get crazy, I do a vanilla bean or French vanilla. But that's all you need in life. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of the podcast. Graham his fingers are twitching. He needs to get up there and prep his food and cut up his veggies and whatever else. Are you doing a veggie tray?
No.
Loser. Have I taught you nothing about hosting people? You always have veggies. They're always a hit.
I know normally we do have veggie tray, but not this time. This time, because it's a Sunday. Come in, eat, say Happy Father's Day, and leave.
So let's see. What time are people showing up?
Hopefully right when dinner's ready.
So after an hour later, Graham's at the light switch, flipping the lights. Get out of my house. All right. Well, enjoy your Father's Day, everyone. Well, actually, by the time you hear this, you will have already had it. So I hope you enjoyed your Father's Day. Get out there, play some games. We will probably talk about in the very near future if we're going to do anything special for the 100th episode. Been kind of ruminating on some ideas. We'll kind of see where that goes. But yeah.
I will say, folks, though, don't worry. This isn't me thinking about it, because whenever I say I'm thinking about what's the future of the podcast, it usually means it's going to end.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you haven't checked checked out the YouTube channel, there is some different stuff up there. I mean, there's these podcasts are in the video format as well. And then we had the catch up episodes and some wargaming episodes, and I'm not sure what else is going up there at this point in time.
Well, the patron only stuff is going up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Patreon only stuff. If you want to reach out to us, shoot an email to boardgamebuffetpodcast@gmail.com, Twitter @boardgamechats, Facebook page, Board Game Buffet Podcast, and whatever Graham's super secret account information is.
I'm not going to tell you. I
No,
will
you
say
don't.
though, we have our Patreon page, patreon.com/bgbuffet, that if you want to support us directly, you can do that. And that gets you some kind of 2 new episodes that we do, which aren't released to the general public. You can go there. I also want to say, even if you can't support us financially, we understand and all that. But what we would ask you to do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, to try and spread the word of the podcast. I mean, it's one of the things that a lot of people look for are reviews when they're looking for new podcasts. So if you can review us and whatever listening app you're using, it would really help the show as well.
Yeah, and to build upon that, if you on Facebook, if you're on Twitter or whatever social media, if you're on social media, either share, or retweet or whatever. I see an awful lot of people always asking questions about what podcast do you listen to, and we always have the same, the same hardcore followers that are giving us the props, which is fine. Listen, I mean, do what you want to do. If you're passionate about something, that's great. But those are things that are probably just as beneficial as anything else for us. So spread the word, spread the love, and we'll let Graham go put out his spread of food for his family. So until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and your loved ones.
See ya.